everybody, and welcome to Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence. We're your hosts, not hosts, hosts. I'm Ron Yacovetti.
Host Gonzalez.
Chris Allgood.
Audrey Keeler.
And tonight we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by none other than Mr. Sean Austin. So first, thanks for being here, for doing the show tonight. We want to take a moment also to acknowledge EVPI and EVPE founders and investigators, Tony and Sheree Rathman. They are usually our other set of hosts. And tonight they're on assignment. They're in Los Angeles, California area, actually Long Beach, for the Dark Zones Halloween extravaganza live from the Queen Mary 4-day event. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So they are very missed tonight. We wish them well. We know they're doing a lot of work to get set up for the program. And so when life taketh two cool people awayeth, it giveth one back. Tonight we have...
Welcome, Sean.
Thank you.
So, Sean, every show, in one form or another, the guest is asked right out of the gate to kind of lay a little groundwork for how you got started. How did the paranormal become something your life was entangled with? I kind of want to lead in real fast before you do that with on previous episodes. I know Chris and Audra or Tony and Sheree have had the opportunity to investigate with who the guest was on that particular show. And so in this case, we're really excited because we've had that opportunity with you at the very haunted at the very haunted Shanley Hotel in Napanoch, New York, owned by the beautiful Kelly. And it was a phenomenal location. And we had one hell of a night.
Yeah.
It was a great night.
I actually wrote about a chapter in my second book that I just released about the Shanley. I decided to do it last minute because I've been there so many times and things followed me home from there. Luckily, they're not creatures from the night and ladies of the night instead. But that place is super interesting, super haunted, and it's always a joy to go there and investigate.
So let's start out at the beginning. You got us the groundwork right there. For people who are meeting you for the first time, author, demonologist, paranormal investigator, musician, singer, songwriter. You're an artist in every sense of the word, because even the stuff we do is an art form. So how did somebody with so many creative outlets and so many talents, and at what point in your life did the paranormal path present itself and you went, okay?
Well, I mean, music was my first passion. I love songwriting. It's been my invisible therapist to be able to put words on paper and bring a certain melody of music to it that actually is an extension of an emotion that a human being can actually have, whether it be something sad or hopeful or, happy or encouraging or inspirational. And obviously I do believe that music and spirituality go hand in hand. And that was before I got involved in the paranormal. Obviously, throughout some of the years that I was really pushing for it, it was during a transition of Napster and record companies merging, and it was really tough for someone like me to make it. You'd have to be like the next Justin Bieber, like 16 years old to, make it anywhere. You have to be a guarantee because, in the old days, they would actually spend money and do development deals for artists like myself and see where it goes. But because of all the merging, it just became a lot tougher and a lot more selective with who they would sign. But I struggled with it, but it was my passion, and I kept doing it. And I still record and release music to this day. But yeah, like a meteor out of the sky, the paranormal hit me over the head in the middle of my life, and it took me over by surprise. I tried to convince a friend of mine who's the most skeptical, cynical person when it comes to ghosts that spirits and ghosts are real. I took him to a local cemetery where there's a lure of 3 women that would chase you out of the cemetery. And in the process of, while he's laughing all night, I actually was in front of this little girl's grave and asked her name was Jenny, if she's still here. And I didn't realize until the next night when I listened back on my phone. And actually, it was one of those flip phones right before we had smartphones. And, the crappier the recording, we all know the white noise is louder, the EVP is easier. To generate and manifest for the spirit, and it's a lot of EVP. And the little girl responded to me and saying, "My 2 toys died," and it just full body chills the next night. And
Wow.
It was that defining that night for me that I knew that ghosts were real. I was watching documentaries over the years, like A Haunting. I think A Haunting in Connecticut actually started the whole series on Discovery, A Haunting. I loved watching these stories of people, and I really believed in what they were going through in these locations and homes that they were moving into. But I never thought about going out myself. I just wondered about it until this happened. After that, about 2-3 weeks after that first EVP of that little girl, I was light out in my old apartment. I actually saw a shadow of a little girl in the corner of my bed, and I yelped out like a dying seal, and it disappeared before my eyes. And those experiences just gained momentum from there. Started going out and investigating just local cemeteries and places that I could go to increase the potential of experience that I could attain by, thinking of specific questions to get specific answers. And it would just increase from there. My, going out and saying, what president was in office when you died? I would get back President, Kennedy or Carter. Or what year did you die or what month? You guys know how it is. You're just getting further and further into it. And I would just go out and just record. I was just excited for the fact to know that, wow, there's something after death, and to have this and witness it firsthand is something, you just can't match, watching something on TV or, trying to debate to yourself, is it real or not? Because you're witnessing it right there in front of you with no rational explanation for it. And that's why we call it the unexplained. And it's unfortunate these days, a lot of people out there fake stuff just for the sake of attention, makes a bad name for people like ourselves who are passionate. But, any skeptic that I actually come forward to me, I tell them, you go out there and witness it for yourself. If you have a first-hand experience, and then you're going to realize that you cannot be a defense lawyer for rationalities by sitting there and judging us by saying it's the wind or that. I mean, when you witness something and you have no rational explanation for it, that's what draws us in to researching, investigating, and using our experiences to help people with it.
Well, some of the best investigators out there were skeptics. I mean, Tony Rathman is a prime example. He grew up with a father that was, scientific. He was a professor. He was a dean. He was a teacher. And Tony grew up in a scientific household. And when Cherie introduced him to the paranormal and they went out for their first investigation, man, he was hooked. And everybody knows Tony Rathman to this day is one of the top people in the paranormal field. And it's things like that where you invite a skeptic out that turns them into some of the best investigators with the biggest passion. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And Sean, too, we've had this discussion a bunch of times too, and I think this bears relevance, especially because you're so steeped in an evidence that is really compelling and hard for anybody to question. That we've had this discussion before that it's not scientific, and it's not a skeptic who says this stuff is not real, I don't believe in it, I'm not going to entertain it, get lost. That's not scientific. That's scientistic. That's scientism, right. And that's not the way it's done. If you do it in a methodology that's scientific, you theorize what you think, you test it, and then you test it again and again and again. And you look for some form of absolution. When somebody's just out debunked and they're against it, they're not a skeptic. Skeptics look for the truth. Those people are believers. It's just in another paradigm. They have an ideology that they ascribe to. It's not the same thing as being a skeptic. So that said, I wanted to jump on something else that you said too that kind of parallels. You have such a steep background in music, which I'm sure at some level, right, you play guitar, right?
Yeah.
So you have an ear for tones, tuning, music. One of the pioneers of EVP and even ITC, Konstantin Radove, said that people of that type of background, or people who are court reporters, let's say, who hear everything. Not that I know anybody, but if I did, how much do you think you can corroborate that helps you just with evidence review, capturing in the moment?
A lot of people have told me throughout the years, you got a great ear. And, I only took 3 guitar lessons and my ear became my best teacher. I taught myself how to progress with the guitar, and even my first solo CD, I played guitar, drums, bass, and sang. So yeah, when it comes to listening to audio and teaching your ear how to grab things, especially if something's coming through a spirit box or an EVP, I mean, I'd say I'm pretty confident in stuff that I hear incorporated what it might be leaning towards what it's trying to say. So yeah, no, I've been saying that for quite some time, that being a musician has definitely aided in the way that I'm able to extract evidence or hear it when it occurs throughout investigations. Yeah,
you train your ear to listen to levels or tones in separate or exclusive from others. Go ahead, Chris.
So, question for you, Sean. So, not only are your ears tuned in, but I've been around musicians my whole life. I actually was a singer when I was younger. I think I still am now, but sometimes I get told I'm not. But anyway, so when you're tuned in to the notes, you can almost feel me being. I'm not an instrumental musician, but I do know that being tuned into the notes, that you feel the vibrations. How does that create a sensitivity? Do you consider yourself partially sensitive because you have to be able to feel the vibrations of the music, not only to teach yourself, there's got to be some connection there where you can actually feel the energy of a spirit when you're doing an investigation.
Well, yeah. I mean, throughout my process of beginning within the first year or two, I started to have medium abilities. I didn't know that this would actually happen to me. And when I was having dark experiences, because my first story that actually happened to me, I had actually threw holy war on a property of a house where there was a double suicide and a murder. And I said in the name of Jesus Christ to let the spirit go. And this spirit followed me for about a couple of months. And
Wow.
And there's had this whole crazy experience. But that was right at the beginning of my journey in the paranormal. And looking back at it, I mean, that's religious provocation. And I was novice in every single level you could think of. And, that's why these things started to come to me. And then I started reading about, demonology, the first book I ever read was The Demonologist, Ed and Lorraine Warren. And then I read John Zaffis's book, Shadows of the Dark. And then I read Ralph's book, which was Beware the Night, that became Deliver Some Evil from the movie. And actually, obviously, Ralph ended up becoming my mentor in demonology. I remember reading this book, The Dark Sacrament, it was like all these demonic possession and stories in Ireland, some creepy stuff. And, during that process, these things were coming at me. And I was having experiences, and I was just like, I was way over my spiritual pay grade with what was going on. But I was also learning in that process as well, because I would think I was skipping grades of experience because so much stuff was coming at me. And realizing that I had these spiritual gifts. We all have spiritual gifts, but I mean, I do believe that I triggered them by engaging the spiritual realm and what I love to call spiritual rules of engagement. I'll give you an example, just, since there's no time conception in the spirit realm, that these things know if you're going to be involved in this work and be a light worker or, someone, whatever, to help for the sake of good and God. And, actually 3 years before I got involved with the paranormal, I was living in a house with roommates, and a girlfriend of mine came to hang out and pulled up to the house. And, she didn't even tell me this story until she saw me posting on social media that I was doing something paranormal, because she was afraid I thought she was crazy. And she said she pulled up and saw this black hooded thing staring into the window of my house with black eyes, and it turned its face, and she said the most terrifying thing she ever saw in her life, and it disappeared. And she finally told me when she saw that I was getting involved in this sort of thing. And now looking back at that as well, I believe that they were watching me from the outside, knowing that I'd be getting involved to going up against dark things of the sort. Or, even when I was younger, it popped into my head when I wrote my first book. I think I was between like 8 and 10, and we had a house out in Long Island, and I was running between the homes. There were like tall, dead grass, and I could see something in my peripheral vision, and I went to go pick it up, and it was a satanic book burned on the outside. I just had this creepy, unsettling feeling, threw it down, and as any kid would, running home and crying to your mom. But, looking back, realizing all this stuff and synchronicities and things like that, I started to realize that there were some omens leading into what I would be getting myself involved with later on.
Wow. You mentioned the demonology stuff too. Some of us have studied a little bit of it. We're a little bit familiar with it, but we're paranormal investigators. Most people who do what we do are investigators. What would you say, at least from your experience, are the chief two things that stand out that people who don't do demonology or not demonologists, let's say, would not know, but because they think maybe they know more than they do? What's the first thing that you think they would be surprised to realize is part and parcel with being a demonologist? Because obviously media and stuff may glorify it, or paint the picture differently than it actually is.
Well, it's funny, when I first started, within the first year and a half or so, I was invited on some radio podcasts, and they were telling me, you have a calling. I don't even know what they were referring to, but it seemed like I had a calling to be involved with demonology, and they were referring to it at that time. And I didn't know. I was having all these dark experiences, and now something else, looking back and realizing, that this is what I was geared to be involved with. Actually, even my book Shadow Chaser, I didn't just call it that because it was just a cool name. A friend of mine, Judy, who is a good friend of mine, she showed my picture to another friend. She has who has psychic abilities, and she believes in her abilities. She asked her what's her psychic impressions of me, and she knows nothing about me. And she said that he's a shadow chaser, and he's, she's like, what does that mean? She's like, well, he's meant to take shadows and send them back to where they belong, and that's why I call my book that, and I'll continue to do so.
Wow.
It is a great title.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we experienced when we got to do the Shanley Hotel with you was almost an inverted property of what we've seen in other instances. Like, for example, Chris Allgood here, from just talking to him, he's one of the most situationally aware, astute investigators I've ever spoken to. He's got police training in his past. He's sensitive, and he's so in touch with his surroundings. When we did the Shanley with you, I saw the inverse on a level I hadn't seen it before, which was going to what you were just talking about. It seemed like the spirits and then the responses that came through were completely aware that you were there, who you were,
And what you do.
Yeah, what you do, your card carrying status and everything. And it was like you were not sneaking up on anybody that night.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing that I've realized through what's been gearing me towards a specific area of dealing with spirituality and just ghosts in general, is my surreal high level respect for ghosts and spirits in general. Now, this is something that I did before even the show Ghost Loop, and I was glad. That was probably my most proud moment to be able to have that feature on the show, considering how much it's hard with people and sensitivity to certain religions and things like that. Is praying for spirits and showing evidence of them actually saying what's happening, because I don't want to just say I'm crossing over spirit by leaving the spirit box on and doing what I do. And I do a visualization of white light. I wanted to leave that box on to give a little extra validation to what's happening. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm crossing over all these spirits, but why would they patronize me? Why would they sit there and tell me thank you? And I'd have these emotions come over me and I'm going to heaven and things like that. So I want people to witness that. I do it on my live streams all the time. And the level of reciprocation from the spirits, they just come to me like, moth to a flame, because they know, I believe they see it around my aura, my aura, my genuinity and intent is knowing that I'm willing to stop whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm going. I'm willing to try and help you. And again, the level of evidence I get from that is just astounding. And I think if a lot more people actually approach that way and not treat them like zoo animals, do a backflip me on camera and then take off, and they're still stuck in some sort of purgatorial state, then you'd actually get more evidence from these spirits, and we'd probably be able to get more evidence to move the community further.
Yeah. So we'll get into your evidence in a second too, but that's also probably what you just said kind of leads into and bears mentioning too, that one of the other things that we observed and when we worked with you saw that you also treated people that you met for the first time. You've been on a show, people recognize you from the show. For people watching, he was as down to earth and grounded as someone can be. He was more than willing to let you ask or learn what he was doing and teach. He was equally interested in what methods you were doing and would ask if you wanted to try something or do something different. That's such an important part of being in a community, to be able to do that and interact with people that way. So that was something I thought that bears repeating, because you're talking about showing respect to spirit. I think you do the same thing with the people that you're around. Oh,
thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, the energy you release from dealing with live people will reflect on the energies around you in the location that you're investigating. So if the energies that are in that location want to communicate with you, they're definitely going to communicate with you when they see you providing the proper energy and the proper respect to live people compared to an embodied energy, or an embodied energy, if that's a word. I'm having trouble speaking tonight, if the audience didn't notice yet. But
it's just like Sean said, it's about intent.
Yeah, it's all about intent. And they can see that intent, and they can see that, like you said, they can see your aura around you. And if you're not putting off a good aura to the live people in the room, they know you're not going to put off any good energy to them, so they're not going to respond. So that's fantastic. And I respect people like that.
Yeah, there's so many different levels of spirits and what they're capable of doing and what their knowing is of their environment. So there might be some spirits that are so desperate they don't even know who it is, but a lot of them are receptive to your energy, and that's how you can actually help these spirits, is because what I believe is that you get down on a personal level and give them incentive to listen to you and be like, here's a flashlight in a dark room. You have an opportunity to leave this dark room. I can't force you to cross over, but I'm trying to give you the courage to say, you know what? We didn't come here. Our souls lived in these human bodies to live a life, a human experience, to progress for our soul eternally and infinitely. And you got to let go and let God and accept God's unconditional love and forgiveness, and don't be afraid of the light, because I do believe that there's dark entities that hold back spirits, keep them in a lower vibrational frequency emotionally and energetically, to the point where they can get stuck and caught up in the emotions that led to their death or the life that they lived that were so painful. I think that happens to us even obviously in life, in the physical plane. I mean, our emotional state, that's how we can actually attract negative energies. And even like if you're a person in a group of people going into a haunted location and there's truly demonic energies there, they're going to zero on somebody that has a past that they can potentially most likely victimize subconsciously, emotionally, and spiritually, and physically, so forth. So they're going to eat on someone's past, because again, there's no conception of time. So it's like a wounded fish and a school of fish, and the shark's going to go up to the one that's flapping in the water, giving off that I'm prey. And that's when they're going to go to. And that's the most delicate, dangerous element of the paranormal. I mean, yeah, it's exciting and thrilling like an amusement park, but we really shouldn't treat it because it's very dangerous. And you're talking about a lifestyle, the way that you live the rest of your life. Because if you step, I mean, I say this because I quote that I came up with, like, you step in the way of evil, you become an adversary to the enemy of man, and that is the devil. And you got to be prepared for that choice, because even if you leave the paranormal, 10, 20 years down the line, they're going to just waiting for something blacked out in your calendar to get a crack in your aura, to manipulate you and use it against you when you have no clue it has anything to do with the paranormal. I've gone on cases where someone had played with the Ouija board 30 years before, and they're not even thinking about it. And then it comes up, Ouija board, and there's a hooded thing telling their child to harm themselves out of nowhere. And there's no history of the house or anything, but that invitation so many years ago, these things can wait very patiently. And when they want to try to victimize and tactically come at us from the shadows, they are the enemy of man when it comes to the demonic. So that's really what you got to be prepared for. And that's why I always tell people, read books to be versed on the worst case scenarios. And you got to be spiritually sound and have a faith foundation, because you can't fight these things with your fists or guns, and especially not your ego.
Right. Do you find that one element, because you mentioned the fact that there's no space-time as we know it in the material world here, in the spirit realm, do you find that as an obstacle when interacting with people either who haven't educated themselves enough, or who are outside of the field, either they're skeptical or they're mildly curious? Because even when you talk like astral, lower astral, and you talk about those kinds of existences, right, you're talking about lower vibrational frequencies. Mm-hmm. The frequencies in electromagnetic or in radio and carrier waves and stuff that we know in the material world, those things are measured by oscillations per second. So if you don't have a per second or a per minute with an oscillation as a measure, it's hard for sometimes people to understand that there's vibration and frequency involved when it doesn't have that measurable quality to quantify it.
Right. Well, I mean, that's just the unknowing of what we do. I mean, that's why we were getting involved in everything's theoretical or speculation, besides what we can actually, extract from our scientific equipment that we can produce some sort of evidence with, or use, like, someone like myself or someone else that has spiritual ability to correlate everything to get some sort of definitive answers on a case or an investigation of a property or whatever it may be. But that just comes along with experience. But, that's why it's so fascinating to all of us, obviously, is just trying to dig deeper to find out what triggers everything emotionally, spiritually, and physically around us. I mean, it's endlessly fascinating, but, you got to be careful, obviously, along that path.
Yeah. So you said two words that I think it's opportunity to jump on. Chris, did you hear him? He said, produce evidence. and he's done that. And we have some.
We have great evidence to show you from Sean. So, all right. So I'm going to go to a clip first. We'll go to some of the audio EVP stuff first. And I will tell people to just, you've gotten probably more Class A EVPs in a single night, that night at the Shanley, in the span of 3 years. It was unbelievable.
It was really good.
And it's a combination of, we had good energy with the group. It was the place, of course, is really active and haunted. Yeah. Dennis Tazzone, we want to make sure to shout out to Dennis Tazzone in New York City. He invited you. Everybody got to meet you from.
Yeah, good people. Good man.
from that night. Yeah, he's a good guy, so he brought you in, and we appreciated that. And and all the stuff we talked about with you, that was just that night was just fun. That was like evidence palooza.
Yeah.
It's Palooza.
So this first clip we're going to go to, if you want to give
Sean,
it a setup.
when Ron goes through these clips, please tell us which ones are audio that you caught and which ones are EVPs that you caught, because these clips are phenomenal, and I'd like to know which ones are which.
Well, you tell me what it's named because I don't know what it is.
All right. So these are we'll go through the EVPs first. These are the ones that Chris was kind enough to put imagery to for the audio. And so the first one we're going to do is called Abby Hiss, but it's a shortened one.
Okay, so let me tell you the story behind this. Number one, it's not an EVP. Number two, this is a story that's in my second book, Shadow Chaser, The In-Between, I just released. It's a harrowing story of a girl that was demonically possessed, and she was pregnant during this period. And it was movie-level ridiculous stuff that was going on. No one wanted to touch this case with a 10-foot pole. And you know what happens when cases reach out to you and you get emotionally involved with them. You want to do everything you can do to help them. But, just like the exorcism of Emily Rose, look what happened to the family and the priest. They were getting charged with negligent homicide. And if something happened to the child, nobody wanted to touch it with. And it was before I even started working with Ralph, I had talked to John Zappis about it, and he was correct. He told me that these girls mess around with witchcraft and, they get pregnant, and they either have complications with the baby or the baby died. These were things that went on. But in this case of the hiss was another defining moment for my faith here. Again, it's one of those situations where, again, I was way over my spiritual pay grade with this happening to me. This girl was states away me every day, and I'd be having activity in my home, and these things happening over the phone were just unfreaking believable. She'd be speaking English backwards, and I wouldn't even know she was speaking English backwards because I couldn't understand what she was saying. I know she was speaking partly another language, but I started to put it in her. She was speaking English perfectly backwards. Now, the hiss was one of those moments where she actually was talking in a low-tone voice to me, and I was recording some of these conversations, and I'd be saying prayers. And, I had a crucifix about 6 inches tall, and she cannot see me on the phone. She can't see me. This isn't a video chat or anything like that. And as soon as I put the cross up to the phone, it hissed at me. And it's just one of those things. It's just like, how did this thing know that, and why would it react to something like that? That's religiously significant. And just the chills that I had that night to have an experience like that was just unchartable. But that's what this one clip right here is.
Wow. All right, we'll play that now, and then afterwards, I want your thoughts on maybe the fact that the crucifix having an energy, having an aura, having an intent, and you're talking about an electronic conductor holding it up to it that possibly was a conduit to get what you held up to where the other person was. All right, let's roll the clip. This one's awesome.
Is that a hiss?
Wow.
Yeah, so right when the cross hit the phone, that's what happened. Now, mind you, I'm going to tell you that one of the other times that she was on the phone with me, because I have an image I can show you here, she was being choked on the phone. I could hear laughing through the phone, and I started saying a prayer for her, and then I was sitting in my room, and I felt burning on my arm, and then 13 slashes showed up on my arm.
What? Oh my God.
Wow.
Wow.
Holy macaroni and cheese. Look at that.
Yeah. And it looks like a cat had its way.
Yeah.
With my arm. And I literally was just sitting there in my bedroom, like, what the hell is going on? Or I can show you this. She felt creepy in her hallway and then took this picture. And if you see this, it actually looks like a witch.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can totally see that
Yeah,
through the
sure
phone. Like through all this, you can still see that.
And if you see this really right here too, I can show you. One time I was on the phone with her on Skype, and dude, it was right something out of a movie. Like she started saying, "I'm going into a trance," because I told her if she's going to a trance, try to document what's going on. And I have some videos, but obviously I don't have the face blocked out. But in this one, I can show you. It started to pixelate and go crazy, and her eyes started to change color. So what I'm going to show you here is something her eyes start because you can't really understand. You see like her eyes are like strange. It looks like she's turning into something else.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And if you look right here, there's a side profile of a black nose and mouth and red eyes, and I think that's the demonic spirit that is hovering over her shoulder. See if I can get that perfectly. See that?
Oh yeah, you can see that.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I have so much with this thing that happened. I mean, I could have a whole documentary with this whole thing.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a picture of the demon that she actually saw. I mean, for someone to say that they're faking it to come up with this description of a demon to what it looks like, and this is in my book too.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow, what's really amazing is wait until we show the clip of your physical response. The picture that I chose for that is kind of weird.
Oh,
Yeah. They're all a little bit. I was a little bit scared when I was watching the. Chris is available for children's parties. Let me say that. You no longer want to have them around.
Just so the audience knows, we always change the audio files that are sent to us by guests on the show. We always do a video file to it, so you have something to stare at, and you're not just staring at us while the video's or where the audio's playing. But because we're on Halloween week, I added some pretty intriguing photos to the audio files, so you could see a video where none of those pictures are the case that Sean was dealing with. By the way, those are just a little bit of glorified Halloween week for us.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, appropriately themed, I think, based on Halloween and the fact that we're speaking to a very talented demonologist. So,
yes.
Oh, thank you.
So really quick, I want to jump in, Sean. That drawing that you showed us was from the girl from this case, correct?
Correct.
So the response you got on the, I don't want to ruin it, but when the one that calls your name, was that directly involved in this case too?
Yep, that's her. She's in it. You're talking about an early 20-something-year-old girl, and it sounds like a layered voice, and there's like a man's voice in there, and it's something right out of a movie, and it's just unfreaking believable what it said to me.
So
It's
Ron,
right out of
can
the
you
movie.
pull that one up next? Because I want you guys to look at the picture I chose compared to the picture she drew.
I can pull that one up next. Absolutely. Just real quick, too, we want to grab questions and stuff. Just some comments. April Tricoli Bissett, Anthony Seminelli, Nancy Pigan or Pagan, if I'm not saying it right.
Don.
I know. Woo! Hi, Donnie.
Michael Sarah, Jimmy Pedinito. A lot of people in the chat tuning in. We appreciate it. If you have questions for Sean, please ask them. Chris and I will try to get to them for sure. If ever you had questions, this is the guy you want to ask.
Yeah.
So, all right, I will for you, Mr. Allgood. I will do that one next. I'm going to go out of order.
I just messed him up. Stir the pot, get it mixed.
I didn't have OCD before the show, but I'm going to have it when we're done. I have goals. All right, so this one's called Sean, She's Mine. And yes, the image you chose for it is quite appropriate. We'll let Sean set it up real fast, but this one is fantastic.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I was praying on the phone because she was speaking. She was in a trance and she was speaking in a low tone voice, and then it just went silent. And you hear she just goes in a dark voice, just Sean, she's mine. Says it like twice. And I mean, you know, if you're on the phone with something like this, I mean, I've never been on a solemn exorcism. Obviously, I was trained by Ralph to do exorcism on locations. It has to be a priest to do that on a person. But I was witnessing all the characteristics of a real possession, and like I'm getting attacked in my own home, and all the shit that was happening. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know. I was speechless with this stuff going on.
Wow.
If just real quick too, I'm going to play it, but just for people watching, right? When something like that happens, because some of us have had issues. I've had an attachment problem before. Some people have had stuff worse than that. What is the mindset, or what is the processes in your head when that happens that makes you say, "I'm going to keep doing this"? Quitting is not on the table. Because I think you're cut from a special cloth to do what you do to be a demonologist and go after those kinds of cases. I don't think that's a pedestrian thing, you know, as far as skills or attributes go.
Yeah, I mean, oppression. I mean, I was oppressed. I was coerced to play with the Ouija board many years ago, and I got through it. I know that God let me go through that for a reason, so I could actually define myself and become spiritually stronger within by learning through these experiences. I can't be protected 100% of the time. I mean, we're human, we're imperfect. Things just happen, and things happen from time to time, but learning about how these things can attack and learning throughout that process is how you can keep yourself protected at most times, because they don't want to be recognized for what they're trying to do. They want you to think that they're your emotions, your feelings, and to the point where you want to harm yourself or harm others, or become reclusive and by yourself. Because if you're by yourself, you have all the time in the world to become more depressed, and you can be more influenced telepathically in every avenue.
All right. Well, I think that hopefully that helps people to understand, because it is not synonymous with paranormal investigating. It has obviously parallels and commonalities, but it's not. You're not a paranormal investigator and a demonologist just because you do the other one. So just for clarity's purpose, it is a unique field of study and a unique calling. So, all right, so we're going to play the Sean She's Mine you just set up, and then we can discuss afterwards. Here it is.
And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the divine power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits that roam throughout the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's
That was so crazy.
if you want to get insomnia, there's
It was so clear.
yeah,
That was so for those people that are watching right now, Sean, that aren't paranormal investigators, and we have a few that watch just to get a glimpse of what we go through. At what point does somebody go, you know what, screw this, I'm out? So it goes in line with Ron's question. What drives you internally as a person? And I know what would drive me internally as a person, but what drives you, Sean Austin, as a person internally go, you know what, F this, I'm gone? Why do you continue to fight something like that? Share that with our audience.
Again, it's a calling. I feel like I'm meant to battle these things. It's just like, I want to be able to help people. God has put me on this course, and having premonitions or about before I go on cases and things visiting me before I go, and knowing that I'm the enemy. But that's the real test of faith, and that's how I can deal with these things. It's not me, but it's my spirituality and my faith that really protects me with these things. But I'm drawn to these things, and that's why these types of cases just strangely get drawn to you as well. They come out of nowhere, and they contact you, and that's part of the whole, I think, the thing about the calling. It's not just you're drawn to it, but these things start to happen around you. Like, the universe just works in mysterious ways, and these types of cases and things involve you, and that's how it's been for me since the beginning, dealing with these types of things. And yeah, I just in the beginning I was terrified because I really didn't know what the hell was going on. I felt like I was way over my head, and but now looking back, I mean, I know the games of these things. So yeah, I mean, I get interrupted sometimes in sleep, and creepy things happen, and you can have little slip ups here and there. You're a human being, but I mean, I know how these things can come at you from every way in the mind, and spiritually, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. So they're not gonna be able to do to me in the end idealistically what they want to do to me. But you got to be prepared at all times when you have made yourself an enemy to these things, because they're always going to be looking for a way in for someone like myself. Now, again, I think mine might be a little bit of a special case too, because not only do I try to help people and go into homes, you're talking about souls that the devil's trying to get. you're talking about purgatorial souls that I believe that I've actually helped cross over, send them back to God, and you're taking souls away from the devil, so that the devil already had. So you're taking it to a whole new level. And still to this day, I have things after me, threatening me and wanting relentless revenge and retaliation because they're telling me that I've crossed over and taken spirits away from demons and things like that. Even my first book, I mean, a horned thing came to me in my bedroom and said, there are rules. When it spoke, it was like a subwoofer and my whole room shook. You know, and like I had red marks show up on my wrists and on top of my feet. Right after that took place. I'm not really sure, but I mean, if I'm breaking the rules of the devil, I guess I'm making enemies in the right place because I'm not abiding by those rules. Because if God is willing to accept these souls back into the light, then I really don't give a shit what the devil thinks.
Agreed.
Well,
If that doesn't clearly define cut from a unique, rare piece of specific cloth for the job function, I don't know what does. But it does beg the question, too, when you're doing this kind of stuff, a lot of times you may not be the first person they call. Not because of you're a second choice, of course, but because maybe they don't know of you, they get a referral. Mm-hmm. What percentage, and we're not naming names, this is a very positive show, what percentage of the time or how often would you say that you have to come into a case that is dark and or demonic and clean up for the Bush League that was there first, that didn't know what they were doing and made it worse?
That happens a lot. I mean, there's a lot of teams that just run away from these types of things, and it just shows their true intent. Because if they really want to help the family, even if they're not able to help, they gotta, they have to move it up the line to somebody that actually can alienate these people. It's kind of like the old days because of the different sections of church where, so the church aren't versed in the types of paranormal. Only certain priests and parts of, the Catholic Church are able to deal with this sort of thing, and then they don't even want to hear about it. And these days, yeah, a lot more people are open to it, which is a positive manner, but you have a lot of people that are involved in the paranormal in the field and doing work for the wrong intentions and wrong reasons. And, when that sort of thing happens, these families get left alone in the dark, and allows these things to continue the oppressive victimizing of these people that they're allowed to when the invitation was let in somehow.
I'm gonna jump to the next clip because some of these that Chris was able to put the images to, they're not too long, but they're really good, and we want to make sure that everybody gets to hear them. And then we'll grab a couple questions from the chat, and then we can revisit. You sent me a couple of links to some of your YouTube videos, which are really well produced, and again, wow factor, not lacking on any of those either. So yeah, so if people came here for their money's worth tonight, they're getting it. This one's called Abby Speaking in Tongues. If you want to give a little setup on that.
Yeah, there's another audio clip of this girl, and she was speaking another language, and I couldn't decipher some of it. I mean, I've had some people think that it's Aramaic and some other stuff. I don't know. Some of it, the clips that I sent to are English backwards that I deciphered and I labeled for you, which you can have people listen to as well. But this is just her going off on a tangent in a trance on the phone with me, and I'm just, listening in awe.
Okay, let's play that for people. I think they will also be listening in awe. Here we go.
Wow.
that's creepy.
Yeah.
Now, I want to point out which I actually noticed as well, which gives more validity to me, even myself. If you listen to that audio, you can actually hear the voice of whatever's speaking through her. You can hear that speaking so fluently and easily. You can actually hear the actual real tone of her voice, like it's speaking through her throat, and you hear the throughout the voice coming through. That's her real voice. And that's why it's just even more bizarre, because it's like it's a combination of two different things speaking.
You actually brought up a point, Sean. I was actually going to point that out. So everybody watching tonight, you're going to hear multiple clips of this case from Sean. And as I was putting those to video, I was listening to them, and you can hear multiple vocal tones. But if you pay really close attention, people that, that review EVPs, you can listen to the underlying tone when you catch it. You hear an underlying tone, which is her natural vocal tone, like Sean was just saying. But it almost sounds like this is not just one entity speaking through this girl. You can hear multiple tones in all of these different audio clips that Sean sent to us. But there is one underlying tone that you can tell is actually the girl's natural voice. And it's almost like she's struggling to get through while these other tones are coming through. It's just fantastic. When you analyze and listen to these, go back and listen to the show after it's live and it's recorded and listen to the different tones in some of these clips. It's just amazing.
Yeah, a really astute assessment of that, Chris. That's true. It's laced with that. Equally impressive, he didn't hang up.
I knew it was important to document whatever was going on because it was just so ridiculous. Like the amount of evidence that I have, and I'm states away, and I'm not even investigating in this girl's property or what was going on at the time. It's ridiculous. I mean, I could probably do like a documentary about it and block out her face, because I told you I have videos of her, like a video of her even like setting up and she's tranced out and she's laying on the bed, and then you hear just in the beginning this low tone growl and just saying Beelzebub, and then she starts getting choked in the bed, and then her 3-year-old son's climbing over, waking mommy. It's so harrowing. It's so crazy. I'm just give you a couple little examples of things that have happened too that you can read more about in my story. But like I said, there were so many phone calls, but I mean, she would call me and something crazy be happening. But for one instance, she's driving in her car and her friend has her phone, and I just hear pelt, 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 pelt all over the car, and they're screaming bloody murder, and her friend is screaming, what is effing going on right now? And I'm like, well, yeah, what's happening? I hear all this banging. What's going on now? The black birds were literally hitting the car from all directions while they were driving back to her property.
Wow.
And I have videos of like her in her property, and you just hear the slow scratching noises in the walls, the little kids saying, the scratching in the walls, it's Beelzebub, 3 years old. One time she goes silent on the phone to me, and I hear the 3-year-old in the background saying, look, mommy's floating. And I tried to have the kid. Yeah, I tried to have the kid videotape it because she was out, and he was sending me selfies of himself, and he's too young to understand. But I was just like, what is going on? Are you kidding me? And talk about one of the most terrifying things you could think about. Imagine this scene in a movie too. She calls me one time, and she's on the phone, and she's like, Alex is saying something about the big bad wolf. He's got the mark of the beast 666, and he's going around the house singing, draw the cross upside down, draw the cross upside down on his stomach, and doing it upside down on his stomach. And so I had just read this book about demons and exorcisms, that demons are not capable of actually saying, I love Jesus. It's impossible. So she's saying he's going crazy, and I asked her to say to him, ask if the big bad wolf can say I love Jesus. So then the kid starts howling in the background, and then all of a sudden she's like, he wants to speak to you. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. You better watch out tonight. The big bad wolf, he says he bites, and he's going to come into your sleep while you're sleeping, bite your penis and spit it on your chest. A 3-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But I know. Yeah. I got to be honest. If an 83-year-old said that, or anywhere in between, it would be unnerving.
Yeah.
Because a 3-year-old, I wouldn't sleep for weeks after that one.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, luckily I woke up that morning with a bite mark, but it was on my arm, not somewhere else.
No kidding.
I know,
I
right?
did wake up with a bite mark. It was a bruise on my arm, though. Yeah.
Wow. Ask your doctor if demonology is right for you.
Yeah. Like I said, during that time, I was not trained in demonology. I was reading about it, and this was happening to me, and I was alone in the dark trying to help this girl. I had a priest over there. I mean, the priest, left because he felt sick, and the kid was saying, "Get out of here," to the priest. I mean, so much stuff was happening. I mean, she was going in a trance and waking up in her front yard, and she had dirt in her fingernail. She was digging in the dirt, just like you would think at some random. It's so much stuff that was going on.
Wow.
I actually have a video of her where her eye. She sent me a video of her when a kid, and you see her pupil, and it turns into it looks like a reptilian slit in her eyeball. The pupil changes into a line. I don't know to rationalize it. I don't know what it is, but it's very strange. I have so much stuff. It's really crazy. But if you want to play the next clip, I can tell you about that too.
Yeah, no, we got 2 more of these, and then we'll do a little bit of the chat. While I'm queuing the other one up, if you want to just give a quick little, Anthony Simonelli from Seekers Club of the Paranormal Queens wants to know, what should a paranormal investigating team need to do if they come across something that is possibly or likely a demonic spirit or entity on an investigation? So they're on a routine investigation. They're not looking for this stuff. They're not messing with it. They go to this place. There it is. How should they handle it from that moment forward? Maybe it would be great because it's probably benefit a lot of teams.
Now, you're talking about, is it a residential case or are we just investigating some random place?
I would say Chris, what do you think? I would say for the masses, probably, somewhere investigative and maybe a historic place. There's probably more volume of investigations in those kind of areas.
Yeah.
But residential, I would imagine, is a little bit of a different tact you would take. Could be other factors involved, like you're talking about children. And
residential is a little bit more personal. Most of the investigators that are that watch our show are doing public. I wouldn't say public locations, abandoned locations, public locations that everybody knows about, graveyard, Stanley hotels, different locations like that. I mean, private investigation is a whole different story, but.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whatever individuals, personal faith or background they have or stuff. Obviously, like, I'm Catholic. So, what I would be doing, I mean, depending on what's going on, because I've been in locations where some things have tried to possess me. I mean, there's a place I wrote about in my first book called Revenant Acres in Indiana. Probably one of the worst places I've ever been. And we actually stopped the investigation because it was so bad. And someone actually had been possessed there. And the video is even on YouTube. But I would say, in the name of Jesus Christ, I revoke your permission to attack me. Back away. I cover my heart, mind, body, and soul with the blood of Jesus Christ, and I fear no evil. And you got to say that with conviction and faith. I mean, I wear this blessed pendant. It was actually blessed by relic of the true cross that Jesus was crucified on, that Ralph has. Anything it touches is considered a third-class relic, and everywhere I go, they mention my pendant, and they talk about protection. So it just depended on what's happening. I'm a firm believer in visualization. So imagining a white light all around yourself, it's some sort of level of protection as well. But obviously, my faith and background, and I would say, if someone's being attacked, I would try to revoke that permission in the name of Jesus Christ or whatever it may be. But it's just dependent on what's going on. If someone's getting attacked, you don't want to provoke. The only time that you actually can provoke a demonic spirit is in the radius and intent of trying to help a family on if you plan to do an exorcism on the property, because you're trying to force the evil spirits out by showing you exactly what it is. Because if it's reacting to it, then you know what you're going to be dealing with, whether or not you're going to be blessing the home or exorcising it. But there's a lot of different scenarios that can take place in an investigation if you're just going to abandon place. So obviously, I would say things of religious significance to back it away, which is very successful for me. And most importantly, right after you leave a place, to revoke that permission so they don't follow you home, or at least have the best chance for them not to.
So let's tie another question into that, Sean. So Anthony Simonelli is an experienced investigator. He's got 20 or more years investigating in the field. He's been on the show. He's a great guy. Now, Carrie Hopper, who is a friend of ours and is, she's one of the hosts of History of a Haunting podcast. And she's actually doing the tours for Tony and Cherie down at the Phelps Dodge Mining Hospital, the Copper Canyon Paranormal Research Center down in Ajo this weekend for Halloween. She wants to know, she's new to the paranormal field. Matter of fact, one of the first investigations she did was with us.
Yeah.
And when she moves here to North Carolina, we're actually going to team up with her and kind of show her the ropes a little bit. She wants to know, being a fairly new investigator, what advice would you give someone like her who's just starting out?
Like I was mentioning before, read books of people that were versed and pioneers of the field, so you can prepare yourself for the worst case scenarios. That's what I did. That molded me to have a deeper understanding of the types of things that can happen, and most importantly, learning about how they can psychologically and emotionally attack you. It's not about getting scratched or furniture thrown around. You're talking about a lifestyle of things trying to manipulate you in the shadows that do not want to be recognized, of what they're trying to do to you. So it's reading these books about, Ed and Lorraine Warren, or Ralph's book, or John Zaviz's book. These books have helped me immensely through the process. So this way, at least if you're prepared for the worst types of things that can attack you, then you're covering all bases. But again, I think it's very important to have a strong faith foundation with dealing with spirituality, because if you believe in spirits, you believe in a high power. So what's high power? That means that's God. So you might want to lean close to that notion throughout this path if you decide to get involved.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point to make too, Chris. Great question to spark that answer, because that's always been my belief, is that when you do something, your platform is only as strong as the foundation you put into it, and that's the foundation has been laid. We're not putting this field on the map like it's never been done before. People have done work before you, so to not familiarize yourself with some level on an ongoing basis, right? Like medical people have to have continuing education credits to keep their licensure and their practice and keep themselves current. They have to know stuff before them. They have to know the cutting edge and new. So I think that's such an excellent point, is that the educational process has to start and then it has to continue. So
well, not only the educational process of knowing what to protect yourself against, what might be out there, is also a good point, Carrie, that you might need to know too, is you actually do it in your podcast. Knowing the history of the location that you're going to also helps, because knowing what happened in that location also can prepare you for what might actually be in that location when you show up. So that's also a good point too.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, the pioneers during the paranormal community was pioneering times, like when Ed and Lorraine Warren and like these people were going around, and families would have to look up in the yellow pages just to find someone that were like a parapsychologist to be able to help them. And they were going through there, and all they had were like videotape, video recorders, audio recorders, and that's pretty much it. And that's why they, even the Warrens, they were doing things like seances, but I think they realized later that that was actually dangerous. But we have items now that we can use that not put us in such dangerous situations, like spirit boxes. We can extract and get a better chance of getting definitive answers, what's taking place, who's there, and why it's there, without being risky in some of the avenues that you can on investigations. But you learn a lot with some of the cases that went on throughout the years. And I was humbled to be, around some of these people and be taught by Ralph that were there, again, when it was not cool to be a paranormal investigator. Like, you just were there because you wanted to help, you wanted to learn, you wanted to experience. These days, you meld Hollywood with the paranormal, and you get all the characteristics of Hollywood in the spiritual community. And it's unfortunate, but, we just got to keep doing what we're doing and focus on that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's 100%. And that's one of the things I loved about when we got to work with you too, is that people don't realize that when you're part of a community like this that's judged from the outside by people who are not using empirical data to judge it. They're judging it on beliefs that they've got through either hearsay or a very fractional amount of viewing, or what they saw on a show or whatever. And so we represent what we do to the public. So we have to stay away from certain jargon. We have to define what and who we are in a way that is based on where it's come from and what it is. And it has to be done with a genuine intent, but it has to be done accurately. And I think that's important to know, how things are done, how things used to be done, the evolution of it. Like you were saying, the Ed and Lorraine Warrens, the Hans Holzers, to know the people who came first, what they did, and then build on or expound on those theories and those ideas, and in some way, hopefully move the field forward.
Right.
So,
spirituality, it's really about, synergy. We should all be synergistically working together for the greater good. But all the human characteristics that come into play, because Hollywood is involved in it now, is you bring an ego mixed in with spirituality, and the accusations, the hypocrisies, and all this stuff. And I mean, I didn't expect to be on any TV shows when this stuff, when I first, I had my own podcast, and that's how I met Ralph. I brought him on my show, and he took, realized that I was articulate and passionate. He asked me to start coming on cases with him. Like, I didn't even know that I was going to be on a show with even Ralph. Like, I just was so humbled to be a part of. I mean, I'll never forget the first case I went on with Ralph. I mean, we were on this case, it was a succubus case. We're in the basement, and I'm seeing a shadow dart around the basement. And he whips out his relic of the True Cross, and we had to stand around this guy in a chair. He's got his arms on the rest, and I'm standing right behind him, and he puts the cross right in his face. He's saying, "In the name of Jesus Christ, if you're in there, you come out right now." The guy's shaking in the chair, and I'm just like, wow, what is happening right now? But again, I was just humbled to be there, and to someone taking a liking to me, and I can learn from them. I'm grateful as hell. And even when I was on the Demon Files, I didn't even want to call myself a medium, but I was so excited to actually have some evidence of my spiritual abilities on that show. I didn't want to, label myself that. And even being called a demonologist, I still would have never called myself a demonologist to this day. But Ralph, who's my mentor, told me, Sean, you're a demonologist only in the last year and a half or so. So I still felt like weird about it, but I didn't really know what I'm supposed to do or be as a demonologist. But, allegedly, your mentor is supposed to tell you when you're ready to be called that. And, obviously of Ralph's stature in the community, I'm not going to take that for granted. And, I just want to do what I do and keep doing that.
No, we want you to keep doing it too.
Yes.
Let's go through the next two files we have here, and then we'll get a couple of chat questions in, and then we'll move over to the YouTube stuff to watch, which is really, really good. This one's called "It's an Exorcism," Abby. You want to give us a little lead into that one?
So what was it, Abby, again?
It's an exorcism.
Okay. So this is after I put it in reverse. This is her actually saying it's an exorcism after I put it in reverse, because I could not decipher what she was saying, but it's in perfect English.
Okay. Let's play that, and then we'll be right back. I'm going to play that again, not just because of the amazing opportunity for any dentists that are watching, which clearly it is. But wow, those are the kind of things when you listen to that kind of evidence and you go, I don't know how people don't buy into this, that there's a realism to this, that just, I'm going to play it again. And then if you want to go on a little bit of an explanation, feel free, but here it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's just one of those defining moments where you witness this stuff watching movies or documentaries, and there I am. I mean, I put a cross up the phone, it hisses at me. It's, there's a language speaking different languages, and I'm finding bits and pieces of it that are in perfect freaking English. Like, how is that even humanly possible? I mean, is there somebody that can actually do something like that? It's baffling. It's still crazy to me right now, but obviously I've gotten used to a lot over the years. But yeah, it's just at the time I was just complete utter shock.
Yeah, that's a paranormal sobriety card right there. Here's another one. This one's called "She Needs an Exorcist." I believe that the title's partially cut off.
So she needs an exorcism, and they know. I think that's what it's saying. The whole sentence, and this was all in reverse after it was in reverse.
Okay, which is phenomenal. I'm going to play that one now, and then Chris, before we go to the YouTube stuff, we'll grab some stuff out of the chat for Sean. All right, so here's that one.
Wow.
Okay, so that one once again bears repeating once or twice, maybe 800 something times. Because
so the audience knows too that Facebook tends to cut things shorter than they actually are. That actual clip is actually longer than it's showing up on Facebook Live, unfortunately. It's awesome that Ron's playing them a couple times so you can hear it.
Yeah, I'll play it. If it's that truncated, I'll do it 2 more times in a row here. Just it really is. I mean, all jokes and comments and stuff aside, it is by definition a phenom, this clip. One more time.
That's crazy.
And that was recorded also through the phone, Sean? Or is that
everything was over the phone that I was able to capture?
That's unbelievable. How do you explain afterwards? Do the client or the person on the other end that you're trying to help, do they lose time, so to speak? Do they lose touch with consciousness and reality and not know that they said these things? And if so, how do you explain that?
No recollection of whatsoever what had actually happened and what I had been able to record. No recollection whatsoever. Just complete utter memory loss, and as if she was in a dream state. That's why I was trying to tell her when she would feel it coming on and she'd start to feel herself lose consciousness. So I would tell her, set up the phone and try to record. And, these are some of the instances of that, what was going on. Or, if she had the phone right next to her face, and I'd put it on speaker, and then I'd record it with another phone so I could actually snack it.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's also, I think, experience too, when you know how to handle the moment with capturing it and documenting it too, and not losing the moment. Because if you're not thinking ahead, you know, a step or two, right, that's gone. You know, you lose that data.
Yeah, and I there were a bunch of times where, you know, that did happen too. I mean, but I was able to capture a lot of stuff. That's why I was trying to prepare for that, because this girl would be calling me almost every day with something new and crazy. So I'm like, all right, so I better document as much as I can. But sometimes I'm driving, or if I'm going to places and I'm just not expecting it, it's crazy shit going down. So obviously I can, you know, recollect it for myself and then document it and talk about it. But having this evidence to at least back up the validity to what was going on outside of those things that I was able to capture, it gives, you know, more things to it. Like, for instance, I'll give you another example. I had a vision that this girl had in the corner of the room, and I saw her eyes changing color. She was in a trance, and I was staring at her. She was just staring up into space, and I never looked to my right, but I knew something was to the right of me, and it was biting down on my right ear with fangs. And it whispered in my ear, and it goes, "Starte," just like that.
Wow.
And when I woke up the next morning, I'm like, who the hell is that? And I look up to find out that Astarte is some sort of demonic goddess responsible for fertility. What are the chances of that, considering the situation? And she's like with this baby and what's going on. She had a symbol that showed up on her pregnant belly that we found out that having something to do with fertility as well, a cult symbol. I mean, she was carving upside down cross in her pregnant belly in a trance. I mean, it's just really bad, man.
Wow.
That's crazy. So much of the faction of people who think that this stuff is all a byproduct of Hollywood. It's everything is some form of a psychosis. There's no spiritual yada yada. Everything's material. We're just meat computers. You know, I mean, there's no meaning or rhyme or reason to life. Like those people.
Yep.
What do you say to somebody like that when you have this kind of an experience? I mean, it's we've talked about this before. In a lot of instances, if people don't have the experience, they can't make the paradigm shift from having a belief that something isn't legit or real to acceptance without having that moment, that profound moment themselves. But
yeah.
those types of incidents, I mean, most people they're not seeking fame and fortune. They're not getting anything from this. So what's the motivation? Like, how do you address that to the people who really out of ignorance for the most part would ascribe this to, you know, it's all some form of a psychosis. There's mental defect behind all of it.
Well, let's talk about like what I was just mentioning. I mean, this isn't just something this girl's projecting towards me. I'm getting physically attacked in my bedroom. I'm having visions about some demonic goddess connected to fertility, and I didn't even know what that name or who that name was. I mean, that's how I judge and differentiate myself, even for my own psychic abilities, of a dream that has just a bunch of garbage, mumbo jumbo shit, and then something that has a little genuinity to it, a vibe. There's something about it that I take note to it, and I'll research if there's a word or something that I can kind of connect something, or that's going to end up making sense. And these are things that was happening with this girl. Like, I was having experiences in my home to get physically attacked and scratched and things like that. Be experiencing this stuff. I mean, was it some sort of duo psychosis that she's able to project onto me from states away? I mean, I wouldn't be experiencing this stuff myself. There was a doll that associated with this case as well, and like I wake up and I saw the doll sitting there, and the head just went like this, stared right at me, and I jumped up 3 o'clock in the morning, chills. And you know, I would be having this stuff happen to me. You know, there's just no way. I mean, thinking about what the little kid said to me too, or you know, the thing would actually tell the young boy that its name was 9, and it would actually make the little boy walk up to the doorknob and turn it 9 times. And it came in the form of a little boy that claimed that it actually died in the train tracks nearby her property, and would tell him one time he was trying to reach for you know, a container of pills. He said, if you come, you know, take all the pills, you can come and play with me. These are things that's, you know, people just can't make up. I mean, and right. Number 9, I mean, I know that demonic things do things in 3s. There's 9 choirs of angels, and there's 9 choirs of fallen angels. And there's all these little connections. And to be honest with you, while I was writing this book, I'm investigating, and it's starting to reference this case 9, talking about her and all this stuff. Like, I don't think these things wanted me to get this story out there. It's really interesting that I don't know if it's meant to happen or not, but I'll mention it here. Like, for a while now, I'm not sure if this story is going to end up being a movie. I've had some weird experiences involved in that. I don't know if that's part of the reason. At some point, I don't know what it is, but I've had some really weird intuitive things like coming up about it too. So I just don't know. But it's, you know, again, just like the Amityville thing too, that we'll play those clips too. I mean, when I was writing the story about my personal experiences, you know, I was having activity in my home. I was hearing flies buzzing, and I'm like writing a story. I mean, you know, waking up at 3:15 in the morning all the time. Like, you know, these are the cases that fascinate me the most, the things that stick to you like spiritual glue, and they hover around you for a certain amount of time. It's so interesting, eerie at the same time, but you know, you just want to like, why is some of these things, they just hover around and they reference constantly going. It happens to me just constantly. It's just baffling. It's nuts, but you know, here we are.
Yeah, Steve White in the trance said that in the chat said that paranormal trances are crazy to witness. He's only seen one, but he said I really had to think about what was going on. So, these things are not a commonality too, right? Not every investigator who does paranormal stuff is going to come across these instances either. I'd like to ask, actually, based on what you just said, how long into your career as an investigator / demonologist did it take you to get to the point when you realized that the people who weren't going to buy in, the people who were debunked, doubt, you had to just realize that's not your target demographic. They are not your purpose. They're not part of your drive or your purpose or your passion. How long did it take you till you realize that's not, I don't need to address that?
I mean, I think for all of us as investigators, researchers in the paranormal, I mean, if we have any chance to actually prove to some skeptics that, you know, something might be real, it's a great feeling. It's happened to me a few times along the way, but you know, obviously where I am today, it's just, you know, whoever, you know, you're always gonna have non-believers, you're always gonna have believers. And, you know, I live stream all the time. I do live lectures. I share my knowledge. I have people call up on Periscope all the time. You know, I spend so much time, you know, speaking to these people. And even if I'm helping one person or a million people, you're still making a difference. I'm sharing my spiritual awareness, and it's making a difference. And that's why, I mean, I never thought I'd be a published author, but having so many experiences, I knew it was important to get it on paper and share it out there, because it's helping people. It's making a difference. It's making a ripple out there for people to experience and make their judgment for themselves. And it might help that one person that's alone out there who actually was wondering if they're crazy or if they're alone, and maybe people around them don't, you know, believe in what they're doing or what they're experiencing. And I just think it's important. We should be humbled to have these experiences and to be able to help others however we can. Because so many people out there never get to experience this stuff. They wonder about it and they think about it and they just watch it on TV. And here we are out there, you know, in the field. It's just with these things going on that it's just, you know, it's just endless. It's endless fascinating. But I think, you know, there's a lot of good we can do with those experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the people who try to tout science as a way to, in a hurtful, you know, very aggressive way, combat and go after people who do paranormal stuff is they try to just dismiss everything and just say that, you know, eventually science figures it out and it rationally explains it all away. That's promissory materialism. That's not science. And it's not probably ever going to happen. So these kinds of instances are really, I think, meaningful also, that not only do you have them and document them, but putting them in the books, in the lectures, and putting that out for consumption is important, because again, we are part of a community that we construct while we're within it. So you have to put your best foot forward and everything you have out there like that, I think, to, you know, to represent self and the field. So yeah, it's important.
Any genre of what we do as human beings out there, whether it's involved in spirituality or not, I mean, it's really about doing something for your fellow man. It's sharing that light that God represents. It's unconditional love and forgiveness. The golden rule: love others the way you want to be loved. That transcends every single religious belief that's out there. And I think that's really what's most important that we need to pay attention to. But someone like myself or some of us that get involved in this work, we have to have our faith really strong in what we're doing, because we're going straight up against these things in a spiritual manner, and a different ball game than someone who might just be an atheist who lives their life, but they're also a good person. They do great work, and they're helping people. And I don't think God would turn anyone away that's actually doing what God stands for, and that is unconditional love and forgiveness for everyone around them.
Agreed.
Great.
That's a good point.
Yeah, sure. So, Chris, I don't know if you and Audrey have anything you want to ask or bring up, or we can hop in the chat and see if there's anybody there before we go to the YouTube stuff.
Well, real quick, Anthony had a quick question, but before I get to that, it's about the rationalization, and we talk about this at almost every show that we do about proving and disproving what we go out there and investigate and the evidence that we catch. It's coming from, as a sensitive, I can sit there and tell you, these are the experiences. This is what I feel. There's a spirit over here. It's a female. Yeah, we caught the EVP on tape, but then my law enforcement training kicks in, and it's all about rationalization. You got this story over here. You got this story over here. You got the skeptics. You've got us paranormal investigators that show you evidence. The truth always lies somewhere in between. And for those of you watching, think about it rationally. Some of the evidence that Sean has shown tonight, it's like the words spoken backwards. She spoke perfect English in reverse. And people go, well, you can practice that and practice that and practice that. Well, let me teach you something. Physically, you have to do something 2,500 repetitions before it becomes an unnatural act for your body. Now, for your mind, it's even more. And speaking in reverse. So say this, how old was this girl, Sean?
She was like 23 at the time, something like that, 22, 23.
So let me teach you something from a rational aspect. Speaking in normal English for between 20 to 25 years old, for that many years, in order for you to learn how to speak it perfectly in reverse, for Sean to catch that on recording would take years of manipulation for you to understand how to do that. And to do it perfectly would almost be physically impossible. So when people are looking at this, it's just this kind of stuff. This is what bothers me coming from both ends of the spectrum, is the rationalization in between. Is you got to look at it. What really makes sense? Could this girl speak perfectly speak English perfectly in reverse by practicing it for a few weeks so she can impress Sean on the phone? It's physically impossible for that to happen.
In some small town down south in the middle of nowhere town where that's what she's doing.
Right. Some of the most expert linguists in the world couldn't do that, no matter how, if they could practice for weeks and still couldn't do that. How could this girl that's in her 20s do that and you catch it on a recording? It's physically impossible. So when you're trying to prove our evidence wrong, or you're trying to prove, it doesn't make sense, rationalize it. It's common sense is not always common. Sometimes you need to use it to look at some of this evidence. And I just wanted to point that out. Sorry, I get off my soapbox now, but that just stuff just drives me.
Listen, you have a soapbox that's built on experience. You have different backgrounds that support your thought process, and I think that was a brilliant thing to bring up, because, and we talked about this on a lot of shows too, is that the people who question, it's okay to question. I can go, hey Sean, how did you get that? Are you sure that that this didn't happen? Are you sure that wasn't contaminated? You could question stuff. That's scientific. That's part of rationalization. But when you look at it and go, I don't care what he's got, it's bull. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
That's scientific. That's scientism. That's not helpful to people in the field. That's not helpful to people of science. It makes everybody look bad. And that's agenda driven. And again, I don't call those people skeptics. Those people are believers. They're just believers in a different paradigm, and they won't mesh with ours. What you said, Chris, that's the mindset of an investigator. You're looking for truth, and your bias jar is empty. You're looking for definition in what you have and what you're going to assess. And that's the way, in my opinion, that's the way it should be. And I think just from working with Sean that one time, that's clearly the way he does things. So that's phenomenal. That's important for people who are new.
So real quick, Sean, before we get on the next clip, we get this question almost with every guest that we have on the show. Anthony wants to know what's your favorite piece of equipment to use.
Well, I really love the ones that just straight up talk to you. I mean, obviously, like, I'm sensitive and I can do things that your average person can't from time to time, on and off. But just that straight up communication. Well, I love the spirit boxes. I mean, there's something about the SB7 for me personally. When I hold the device, that they're projecting their energy through that thing, and somehow I tap into the spirit sometimes just from holding that box. I also noticed that the activity will start to spark up from using the spirit box, or just straight up EVPs. Something that I can validate, at least through something that I might hear psychically, clairaudiently, or clairvoyantly, or something that I see that they can just straight up say really quickly. I love the back and forth speaking, because I can intertwine with my abilities very quickly rather than just associating. But obviously, you like your Mel meters and stuff like that to get definitive questions. Those are things too. But to be able to see the ghost or hear what the ghost is saying, I would think those are those two prevalent things to be able to do while investigating. But the straight up communication, it's just it's very quick, and you can use that so efficiently on an investigation. I think it's important.
Awesome.
I thought you was gonna say the cell phone and the HL.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are trying to download and use it. It's ridiculous. So that was just by mistake too. Someone sent me a message on there and heard really clear EVP, and then they start saying it through the spirit box, HTEL. And then I'll never forget, I was in this one place called the Greystone Manor, upstate New York, and they had the spirit box on. I was live streaming, and it said HTEL right through the spirit box. And I'm like, all right, we got to do an EVP. So I did an EVP and literally got it. It's actually on my YouTube channel too. You hear a horse galloping inside the house, and that property used to be a horse track. So there's horses all over.
Oh, wow.
On the property, and to actually get right on EVP inside the house, it was like someone was actually signaling me, "Hey, Sean, you want to go to EVP? Go record on HTEL." So
Yeah, cool.
I'm gonna move to the YouTube stuff next, but just real quick on that, the Shanley Hotel opened up the one room that was like a parlor living room kind of space that was not accessible for the longest time, and that was the room we got to go in with Sean, and he used this app called HeyTel to do EVPs, and it was astounding what he recorded inside of 30 minutes. It said that he's a demonologist. It said stuff personally about him. It named a few of us in the room. It was unbelievable. The app was phenomenal. It just records. It doesn't have word banks or sounds like a sweeping box or one of those apps that emulates a spirit box. But man, did that app produce?
Yeah, and it still does. It's just crazy. Everywhere I go, I mean, I get something on it. Who needs to spend $2,000 on a DR60 when you can just do this for free?
Right.
And it was tantamount to that level of quality and the clarity and how
good.
well it worked. And so that's another example of what we said before. Then I'm going to go to the clip, but this is not a moment I want to miss either. That's you out in the field with people who had varying levels of experience, and you introduce something, and there was no proprietary, I'm not telling you what I'm doing. He was like, here's what it is. Here's where you can get it. He used it in front of us, and it was unbelievable. And everybody walked away from that investigation not only feeling fulfilled and had a great time, but looking for that app and starting to use it.
It was full phrases.
Yeah.
It was full phrases. He's a demonologist. I'm like, stay away. He's a demonologist. I forgot exactly what it said, but it was a whole phrase. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's wild. I've got some ridiculous stuff on there. And y'all get like 4 Class A AVPs in one little. I mean, you can only record with 30 seconds of it, and it's
that's another thing.
One and done recording. So, yeah,
it goes into automatic playback after the time that it limits you on recording. It goes right into playback, and so you hear stuff.
And it's like a 30-second time limit, and he got like this whole phrase. It was like crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go to the first one. This is the one that has to do with Mr. DeFeo at the Amityville case. So if you want to briefly set it up, and then what we're going to do now is I don't have the actual file, but I'm going to share the screen, and I have it queued up already. And if it's not queued up, and then then I'll take the hit on that. So
no worries.
It's queued up, and we'll play it. These were all really fantastic clips too. So if you want to go ahead and set this one up.
Yeah. During the time period I was writing the chapter about my personal paranormal experience that had to do with the Amityville horror case, because things had followed me home after going by the house and the grave of the DeFeos family. I was live streaming a cemetery for this one, and again, to bring up the subject we actually brought up before about me being a musician and how keen my ear is hearing voices and recognizing very quickly. And I've heard a lot of interviews with Ron DeFeo and stuff like that, because it's a very fascinating case to me. And when I heard this voice say, "I'm in prison," I even said it on the live stream on video, I'm like, that sounded like Ronald DeFeo's voice. And you think about what he's saying. I'm in prison. He is still in prison. And I think it's one of the demonic entities that's possessing him. And it's projecting out. It came through because this cemetery that I'm in, I call it the portal cemetery. And places that have portals, I have spirits from all different locations that I've investigated come through and reference and discuss things. So I actually on this clip put the I'm in prison from the SB7, compared it to a real interview of him saying the word prison. And I think it's pretty undeniable, in my opinion, that it's the same voice.
All right, well, let's let everybody hear it too. I would agree that not only does that seem to be the case, but also that the gifts that you have with being able to pick up tones and have a musical ear, I think this is an example of where it really did play a role. Which role that?
While investigating a haunted cemetery using the spirit box, I was live streaming when a voice came through saying, I'm in prison. I recognized the voice, believing it to be Ronald DeFeo Jr. This is why.
Do you want to stop it and maybe start?
Writing a chapter about my personal experiences regarding the evil horror. There were weird things that had been occurring constantly having to do with peace. Here is the voice comparison to his real voice.
Need to be the bad guy and they want me to sandwich. Need to be the bad guy and they want me to sandwich. Need to be the bad guy and they want me to sandwich.
If you want to read more about what happened to me regarding Amityville, it's in my second book, Shadow Chaser. The In-Between.
All right, so we're back from that. Apologies if it played choppy. I'm not sure why YouTube isn't fully cooperative.
It happens.
Yeah, because we're not having any streaming problems from what I understand throughout any of the other parts of the show, but for some reason that. So if hopefully people were able to hear it, if not, I would encourage them to go to your YouTube channel and watch, because it is an incredibly close, if not identical, likeness and vocal on that one.
Yeah, I mean, you get the Long Island accent and everything. It's there.
You can hear it sounds just like him when it says prison. It sounds just like him.
Oh, it does. And if anybody that's so, other than the Queen Mary Amityville horror is one of my most favorites. I mean, we've all seen it as a kid, and you see the documentaries of interviews with Ronnie DeFeo, and that voice in that clip matched his voice almost complete. I mean, without a doubt, with Ronnie DeFeo talking in the EVP, that was phenomenal. So
yeah,
I would encourage people to go back to Sean's YouTube channel and check that out, and then look up a documentary of Ronnie DeFeo and some of the clips of him speaking after his arrest, and the voice is just undeniably his. It was phenomenal.
And then wait till you listen to the next one with George Lutz.
Yeah,
that's
this one.
That's a good one too.
This one, he knew where we were going. Yeah, that is the order we're playing him. This one's also awesome. And again, I will pre-apologize if YouTube, for whatever reason, comes across choppy. Sean, when we're done, which is going to be soon, hopefully for sure, let's not forget, we'd like to get your YouTube channel so people can go there and of course subscribe and support. If you have a copy of one or both of your books, I'd like you to hold them up before we finish the show too. I think people watching already would be ready to buy them. but you know, if we can sell some books and enrich our community, why not? So
Yeah, absolutely.
all right, so let's see if we can get the next one to play. So this is also from Amityville. It involves Mr. Lutz. Do you want to set it up real fast? I mean,
Yeah,
kind of.
so I was actually in the hotel room filming the show Ghost Loop, and they had told us the hotel was haunted. So I mean, I wanted to live stream from my room by myself. So I sat there, and the spirit box was on, and I clairvoyantly saw George Lutz's face in my mind's eye. So I'm like, George,
Wow.
here, and it says Lutz. And then you hear, and I'm like, why are you following me? And it was before, because after filming the show, I planned to do my story with the Amityville thing, and it goes the chapter. So he's basically telling me he's following me because of the chapter. And then you hear his voice say, Amityville stole my soul. And then I compared the two voices of real interview and what he's saying in there. And again, it's to me, it's uncanny, identical, and it's just mind blowing.
Yeah,
but it gives validity to these things from Amityville were following me. It's not just me telling you I had experiences. These voices are coming through, and they're identical to the voices involved with these people that were involved with this one of the most profound paranormal cases that ever was. I mean, if I had one place I could go into and investigate for an entire night, even if I was by myself, it would be the Amityville house. No question, number one house I would love to investigate.
You and me both. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
We'll volunteer, Chris. And you can take Chris with you.
I'll go in a heartbeat if they let us in. Yeah.
No one be safe. No one to get high, because every spirit would know Sean was there, and Chris would know every spirit that was there.
Well, I can actually show you really quick too.
Yes. Oh,
please.
Right here, my second book. So I had a really wonderful artist. Her name's Kimberly Carper. I had her draw some pictures like she did for my first book. Just to give a visualization of some of the things that I've seen. So I want to show you one of the first things that happened to me. So I don't know if you know, I guess you don't know about the Amityville thing, but what actually happened to me was I went to the property. I actually went to the DeFeo grave site. I was live streaming. I asked on video, if they're one of the DeFeo families who's still here, and it said John, and I didn't know which person that was, but I knew it was one of the kids. I asked who was the demon responsible for influencing Ron to kill the family. It gave me a demon's name, and then I sat in my car so I wasn't disrupting anybody visiting graves because it was during the day. And the little kid's voice started coming through, and he was saying it's John. And I asked him, "You want me to say a prayer for you, John?" He goes, "Please." Now I know, obviously, in the line of work that I'm involved with, demonology, demonic things can change their voice to sound like kids and things like that. But in my opinion, and even I had asked Ralph at the time, no demon would ever want you to pray for any reason to bring you closer to God. So this kid asked me to pray, and I did. And I went by the house, and the kid was still coming through. I've never had the same kid's voice constantly come through the spirit box like that. It must have been like over at least a dozen times.
Wow.
At least. I have this on video still. And then the voice George came through. So the first thing that happened to me was I was in my bed, and I had this vision where I was walking into the Amityville house, and I looked up at the top of the stairs in the second floor of the house, and I saw these three perfect shadow figures and yelling out to them. Because John, the little boy, mind you, people believe most looks like the infamous photo that Lorraine Warren's photographer took in the house of the boy peeking out. It looks most like John. Anyways, and which was, I believe, on the second floor, actually. So I yelled out to these things, name of Jesus, let John go, in Jesus' name, and all of a sudden this piano picks up and it throws at me from the adjacent room, and I felt the jolt, and I jumped up and saw black mist go through my ceiling, and I looked at my phone. It was 3:15 in the morning. This is the beginning of many times like things like this would happen, visions about the house and waking up at 3:15 in the morning. But I actually had someone draw a picture of what I had seen.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
See what I saw in the house.
Yeah.
I have two comments. Very creepy image. Very talented artist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very.
So another point, Klaus, to give more validity to my experience is that piano. I was trying to search. I'm like, was there a piano in the DeFeo's family? I had to search, and finally I saw some image in the corner in an adjacent room. There was a piano in the room adjacent to the stairs when the DeFeo family was actually living there, and I was not aware of that. And for that to be thrown in a piece of the puzzle, a part of this visual that was going on of this house at the time and connected to the case, that was just another thing to me. Is like, all right, this is legit.
Wow.
Yeah, those moments that bring you back to center, you know, because sometimes your skeptical side will take a little lead, and sometimes your side of wanting to believe, right, will lead you a little bit. But some of those moments bring you right back to center, you know, and it's profound, man. And you've had probably, I mean, dare I say, an inordinate amount of profound experiences. It probably just nest into what you do alone as a specificity and study with demonology. And we know we've got friends that are demonologists too, and it's not just paranormal investigating. I can't stress that enough.
No.
Yeah, and because I have medium abilities, I have this whole other thing that incorporates not the. I mean, I don't even know how many demonologists actually have medium abilities. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm getting a lot more in depth with stuff that your average person wouldn't get. But I actually want to mention something because I actually connect the dots from this, and this is what I believe. So I actually mentioned in my first book that I had this vision where I was in the back seat of a car. Lorraine Moore was in the seat next to me, and she's wearing a plaid skirt. It was in the 70s. Ed's driving, and he's saying, "We're off to the Amityville house." So I'm like, "All right." So we get to the Amityville house, and we walk inside the door, and then Ed turns to me, and I'm looking at the stairs, and he turns to me. He's like, "You know, Sean, we're back in time right now." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He's like, "You know, you're a big part of all this." I'm like, "Really?" I mean, like, I'm just perplexed. And he's like, "Take a look up," and the word accolade was floating in midair in the prop, you know, at the top of the second floor. And I'd forgotten what that word really meant. I had to, you know, look it up the next day, and it meant some like honorary knighthood or accomplishment. And at the time, I had nothing to do with the Amityville house. I had no idea I'd be writing something about my personal experience of the Amityville house. And all of a sudden, when I went there and prayed for this kid, and actually Ralph came with me to the property, and we did a session, and he actually dedicated his whole mass to helping this kid cross over, and he never came up again. And I believe that he crossed over finally. And now looking back, is that vision with Ed Warren, as I think that's what he was referring to, that you're a big part of this, because I think we helped that kid cross over.
Wow.
That would be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Wow. All right, we're gonna roll the other Amityville clip. This is the one that involves Mr. Lutz, and this one is equally equally sobering. This is really cool. All right, let's see if we can
Get YouTube to cooperate.
I know. I hope so.
Yeah, I'm investing in YouTube tomorrow if this doesn't work.
The ironic piece of that is we're live on YouTube right now, so that's fantastic.
I know. That's what it is. Maybe it's redundant, you know.
Oh, we shall see.
Let's find out.
Our video clip is wild. On the road filming. We were staying in a hotel. I live streamed from my room, and out of nowhere, clairvoyantly, during a spirit box session, I saw George Lutz's face. At the time, I was planning to write a chapter in my second book about my personal paranormal experiences having to do with the Amityville house. Once I returned home, all of these weird occurrences have taken place since then. Here's just one instance.
George, are you here with me right now? What? Oh my God. Dude, I heard him. I saw George Lutz. I saw George. Lutz's face in my mind's eye. And I just said, George, are you here? And it just said Lutz. Wow. Why are you following me, George? Okay.
Wow.
Stole my soul?
That's why the investigation was held, and people from different psychic research groups.
Wow.
That at least we could check their credentials were called in and asked to come in. Well, it was our house. Well, it was our house.
That sounded like George Lutz's voice. What stole your soul? Home. Oh my God.
There is more to this story. Yeah, you can still hear it, but it's wild, right?
Yeah. It's too bad it's lagging like that because those responses are remarkable, and it's too bad.
Yeah,
I wish it could have the full effect of it.
I see why Tony, when we were guests on the show back in the day, he wanted not to use YouTube that way for some reason, I guess. So I'm going to go to the next one, and what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to share the screen the same way again, and I'm going to play the video, and then I'm going to pause it for a moment, and hopefully it'll load ahead a little bit to buffer enough to not stop. That has helped in the past. Hopefully it helps now. That was an amazing clip, by the way. You can hear Lutz was extremely clear, unmistakable. And then so were the fact that he said the chapter and the timing and relevance.
The word home. That was amazing. And chapter too. It was right on point. You were writing about it.
Amityville stole my soul is just so eerie. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on a number of shows too, is that one of the ways that we vet the validity and the legitimacy of something being a phenomenon as far as evidence goes is timing and relevance. I mean, what are the odds that through some range of sweep or whatever that all those things came through at that time about those things, and it was on what station? You mean it's absurd to think that that's anything other than what it is.
And the voice, the how similar it is to his real voice. It's just
yeah.
Well,
I have both of those clips. I was hoping to actually interview Ron DeFeo in prison. I had sent a letter in to see if it didn't happen in time for my book to come out. But I actually wanted to play, because I never posted on social media, the little boy's voice, because if he could actually tell me that sounded like John, that would be even more possible validation as well, even further.
Well, I also wanted to point out for everybody watching, make sure you go back to the YouTube channel to watch it, because unfortunately it's not progressing the way we want to on the live show. But the fact that you added a clip of George Lutz on there so they could compare the voice tones to see the comparison, that is phenomenal. I mean, that is just a phenomenal way to present your evidence, Sean. That was just fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
The voice is similar.
Yeah.
If you guys have issues for the next one, I could actually just play it right from here, and you can actually hear it probably better.
Probably.
Listen, if it starts buffering again, like some kind of a dial-up computer from the early 90s, and then it says you've got mail, we're gonna do that.
All right.
We're gonna do that. Let's see if we can get the play.
All right.
I'm gonna go to the clip, and then I'm gonna pause it momentarily just for a couple seconds to see if it loads up and buffers. And if I can't trick the clip into working, then we're going to go to Sean too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which has been more reliable tonight so far.
Yeah.
The tube of you. Play the clip.
All right, here it goes. Here it goes. This is ghost flies through my hand. Actually, you know what? We're still live, right?
Do you want me to just do it?
I'm going to try it real fast, and then I'll instantaneously doesn't work. But this one, I'll play it first, but afterwards, I'd love you to talk a little bit on this, because one of the most controversial things that skeptical and believer people alike seem to share is a distrust in orbs.
Yeah.
And I think there's a validity to it that kind of goes unsung, and I think you spoke to it in this clip. So let's play it and see if it works, and if not, you can play it there. But I would love you to address that, because I think you make one of the most pertinent points about the presence of orbs that I've heard, and so I think it's an educational moment for the field.
Sure.
Giving it a moment to go ahead.
In this clip right here, actually is at the beginning of my paranormal journey.
Yeah, let's.
You want me to do it?
Yeah. Shout out to Sean too, because I don't know if that's going to work.
Okay. So let's see here. All right.
That's a good idea.
In this clip right here, actually is at the beginning of my paranormal journey. I had just got something caught on camera with this white manifestation of some sort flying all over my camera, which is also going to be on my YouTube channel as well, and I'll explain about that as well. But when I first got something on camera, I showed to some people, and some people were like, wow, and some people were like, wow, is that a bug or this or that? It's dust and things like that. And, you know, I know there's a big debate about whether or not spirits come in the form of an orb, ball of energy, spirit energy, whatever you like to call it. I do believe that spirits do come in the form of a ball of energy. When they don't have a physical body anymore, they're just a ball consciousness energy, and they can manifest themselves in a bunch of different forms, and mostly it is in that ball of spirit energy. And what I did here in this video was in my old apartment, and mind you, I was a beginner at that time. I did not know what I was doing. I do not suggest doing experiments in your home when it comes to the paranormal. Your home is your sanctuary. You have to keep it safe. But at the time, I wanted to prove, since I was having experiences at my home and I was starting to investigate and learn about the paranormal when I was a novice, I thought about a way to prove that not, you know, all dust is just dust. I mean, I know that spirits can come in that form. So I thought of an experiment, and I put my hand out to ask the spirit, whatever spirit that was around, to fly its ball of energy through my hand. And on command, you don't see dust flying anywhere else on this clip, but this perfect sphere right through my hand. And when it did, I felt this static electricity of some sort, as if you took a balloon and rubbed it up and down on your arm, and your hair starts to raise, like this little strange feeling. And I was just in, you know, shock again here. It just proved to me that, yeah, I feel like it's spiritual camouflage. It's probably the way God made it take place, where we could debate it and it could hide within our, you know, first sight, if you will. But yeah, I wanted to share that experience because that was very amazing for me at the beginning of my journey, and it was pulling me deeper into being more passionate about the subject through experiences, and ultimately wanted to help people and spirits as well, which I do to this day. And here's that clip.
Can you come by my hand? Fly to my hand. Fly through my hand.
So there it is. But you know, that to me, it's just like you can't tell what you want it to do.
Right.
We don't see anything flying anywhere else besides directly into my hand from left to right. That's like getting 5 royal flushes at once. You'll get some luck like that.
It's like the dust is not just gonna happen to come, right? When you ask it to.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that would be a clean service career dream to be able to command dust like that.
And that's not it's not the first time I got you know, something like that. You know, I put another image in my book actually. We were at this place called Sterling Opera House. Actually, it's in Connecticut. You know, the ceilings go high up like 40, 50 feet. I mean, there's 3 floors with seats that people used, you know, during, you know, the time it was an opera house. But this place, Houdini did his trap door on the stage. They established the Purple Heart there. There's a jail that was in the first under the basement floor where they had prisoners. Like the place was just super haunted. And this was after I got this video and I wanted to try it again. And I had my friend, you know, take a few pictures actually. And now again, I hold my hand up and I'm like, can you float your balls of energy above my hand? And my friend took 2 pictures. The first 2 pictures, nothing was there. But on the third picture, once again, nothing else, anywhere else in the picture besides perfectly right above my hands. In this image in the opera house, you can see right here.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
That's impressive. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 spheres perfectly. You can see it. Nowhere else in that huge area, no dust anywhere else besides perfectly above my hand.
They're perfectly round too.
You know, so just another you know thing. Actually, our friend was there that day. He didn't know if ghosts were real. He's like, "All right, guys, ghosts are real. I'm out." And he was in the car for the rest of the night. Yeah.
So real quick, what for you? What would you say for people? Because the orb thing, we've had discussions, and it seems like it's an understudied aspect of something that you come across in the paranormal field. Everybody's so quick, maybe because safeguards against contamination in that aspect aren't put into place, but people are so quick to dust, it's bugs, and in some instances, especially if you're dealing with with more novice people, it is a lot of times those things. So it's not like those things don't happen. But I think that it takes away from people believing that there's a legitimate side to it.
Yeah. Well, even when I first started, when I was like looking around the house and I did video with my phone, I'm like, oh my God, there's orbs everywhere. I think that's what a lot of people like do, like in the beginning, like, oh my God. But as you investigate further, you realize that dust will have a pattern flying across the screen. But if it has an intelligence to it, if it's defying gravity, stopping here and then going backwards, I mean, it's not going to be dust. I mean, obviously it's going to be a bug or a spirit. But obviously, doing experiments like I came up with myself is something that even a bug wouldn't do. So that's why, you can come up with experiments yourself as an investigator, and just depending on the type of situation that's going on during an investigation, you can actually figure out, whether or not that is something most like paranormal or something you can rationalize.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think that's important too. I think it gets dismissed out of hand so easily because of the possibilities of it, and because of and we've all done it. Like you said, that whole novice not knowing what it is, and everything's a ghost. Look at all the dust and orbs and ghosts and whatever, and that it doesn't ever get any legs of credibility going forward because it gets associated with that. But I don't think you can necessarily discount it in every situation. I think, like you said, a lot of times if it exhibits a characteristic that is specific to a behavior or an intelligence, you got to look at that.
Right, like the specific direction to go into his hand, and it does it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just thought about it. It just popped in my head. I'm like, all right, I want to try this out. And I felt a static charge go through my hand when it happened too. So and I physically felt something happen as well. So it's just, it's just one of those things. But I mean, that was right at the beginning. So, I mean, capturing stuff like that. I got another thing on video that was flying all around in a store. I was managing a wine store. My boss actually tragically killed himself, and his ghost was in the store, and he was following me around. And that was the first thing I captured on video. And people were like, "Oh, it's a bug and this and that." I'm like, "No, it wasn't." And that's why I did that. Prove that, like, okay, how can I prove that that wasn't just a bug, or it's not always a bug? And that's what led me to do that. But we know spirits can manifest in many different forms, and I think that's the most common thing that they are is a ball of energy. And you think about atoms inside us. There's these perfect spheres. I mean, there's got to be some sort of connection. It's kind of like a spiritual cell, not just a physical cell that's in our bodies that make our bodies function. But it's just like my other theory too, of like where this started, of why why does everyone think there's always ghosts of the white sheet over a ghost? I have a theory about that, and I believe that only certain individual spirits are innovative enough to actually be able to project as an apparition, of one. But number two, I think the ones that actually can, for the most part, they project in black and white. So if they project in black and white of how they once were, we would actually see something that should appear as if it was white most of the time if it was a lady in a dress. So I think that's in my opinion, why we've associated this white sheet over a ghost all the time, because it's kind of the same method. Because it's very rare to not only see an apparition, but in color too. It's even more rare for people to experience that. But that just makes sense to me as well.
Absolutely. A lot of early paranormal research suggested also that because of the energy possibly needed to manifest, that a lot of times apparitions were partial in as they wouldn't have, let's say, feet or maybe from the knee down, they're not shown. And it was because they were saying that they were manifesting with an energy just enough to be recognizable. Like if you saw an apparition of a family member, let's say, you would recognize your uncle if he didn't have his feet, if you could see what was identifiable. So there was another theory that suggested maybe they're only manifesting in as much as they need to.
Yeah, and that ghosts in general, why they're here, they're not capable of letting go of the life that they once lived. They feel like they're leaving something behind that they shouldn't. So they want to be seen, they want to be acknowledged, they get energy from acknowledgement. So to be able to project themselves and for us to connect and have hear, feel, or see them, that makes them feel like they're alive still in the physical plane. That's why they will show themselves to us and people that are sensitive, and especially children who are fresh from the spirit realm and still have those natural psychic gifts that have not been contaminated by the rational perspectives of an impressionable child's mind. So, all these spirits are just desperate for attention, desperate for the energy, and desperate to feel like they're alive. So that's why they'll do these sorts of things all over the map.
Yeah. So speaking of doing sorts of things, you've tolerated us for almost 2 hours.
Wow. Yeah.
I go on Periscope and I talk for 3-4 hours with people. I don't care.
we saw you do it at the Shanley, and you have a following. I think for people watching, if they heard us talk about you having a following in the beginning of the show, or if they're hearing it for the first time now, I think if they watch this episode again, or if they watched it tonight, they'll see why. You're very knowledgeable, very personable, people first, selfless, not selfish. And from having the experience of working with you, the event was great. We were grateful to Dennis Sassone that he invited you and had you come. It made the experience for everybody more educational, more experimental. The experiences were, I think, enhanced. It was just fun. So, and fun's important because passion, right?
Yeah, I mean, the more chance you have to experience, the more you can learn.
Well, so just a quick question from that Shanley night. That was our first time in that room. You had you investigated the Shanley before then? You had, right? Or no? Was that your first time?
I can't remember. That might have been my first time because I know she had just opened it up. But now I go in there all the time, and there's something dark that lurks in there, and it's right over that area where they believe that portal is, and I don't know. There's something about that room for sure. And I've seen yellow glowing eyes there a couple of times.
Yeah, there was something about that. That was our first. We went a whole bunch of times, but that all those times, that was the first time that I've been. That was your first time too?
No,
in that
family?
Room? No, to
that room. Yeah, that room was. Yeah, it was like
it was always closed out.
It was storage, and it was not safe for the public. So there was not. It was not open. The night you were there with us was the first night we were allowed access to that room.
To that specific room. Yeah.
Yeah, it may have been my first time too. I can't remember. I did put that video on YouTube too. There's a lot of stuff on there.
All right, so that's one of the places we're trying to get Chris and Audra to drive up north a little bit now that they're on the East Coast. We really want them to go there. If we get them to go there, Mr. Sean Austin, who works with all peoples of all kinds and teams, you shall get called.
Yes, you guys know I'm always down. I mean, you know, of course we got to investigate again.
Yeah, it was fantastic. They would have loved that too. So, YouTube channel. Tell people, is it what the name of your YouTube channel is so they can go?
Yeah, it's youtube.com/Sean Austin's Music, SEANAUSTINS Music. It's got my music and then paranormal investigations and clips and things like that. I have so much footage, so many investigations I go through. It takes so much time to upload stuff and label stuff and find evidence. So I mean, slowly but surely, I'm adding more and more to there, and I've got a bunch more. So, but yeah, and then if you want a copy of a signed book of my first book or my second book, you just go to SeanDAustin.com. I mail out signed books in the U.S. Otherwise, it's on Amazon.
Awesome.
Okay. Do you have copies you can hold up?
Yeah, I got a copy of just my second book right now.
Awesome. It's great artwork.
Yeah.
The guy does a great job. And, you know, I wanted, you know, obviously we think about mirrors and looking into it, you know, the mirrors, you know, it's like going into another dimension and we, you know, spirits use that, but I wanted people to kind of like figure out, like, am I looking into the future of me with a girl or is it like, you know, the spirit of the girl that's actually behind me, that's actually projecting, and you can see the lady right behind me as a spirit too.
Yeah, very nice. Cool cover.
So I know we had one more clip too. We had the Annabelle doll one. It's 5 minutes, which at this point would be awesome. But I don't know if you want to hold your phone up that long.
For 5 minutes.
I'll do it for you guys. I don't care.
So I would say get that queued up, and then I'm going to defer to Chris and Audra if they have any questions or anything they want to do, or if anybody in the chat. Chris,
there hasn't been any more questions in the chat.
We're good.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. So let me just give you a little preview. So I went to an event where the Annabelle doll was. I guess I'm unique with this experience to actually say that I believe the demon from the Annabelle doll followed me home. I don't know who else that's happened to, but this video shows evidence of that. And I guess I just tell the little story of what took place in that clip. So
I'm gonna give you full screen by yourself here on this.
Sure.
Definitely worth pointing out.
The real Annabelle doll from the Conjuring movie franchise based on Ed and Lorraine Warren's case files. I have met the doll on a few occasions, but at this one event, something was different. I was live streaming the case that holds Annabelle, and Dan Rivera from Nesper noticed the latch and door unlocked, being slightly pushed open. I wouldn't find out till later, but the demonic force associated with this doll, I believe, followed me home. Here's what took place.
Now over here, oh, come on. No, wait there.
Make sure it's not popping open again. That would be too good to be true. If that just popped open. That's weird, yeah. It unlocked? That wasn't open before. Oh, really? Oh, shit. Okay, guys, so that was not open before. Wow. And he just came to lock it. This story about the dinosaur might be in the part at the beginning of the next Conjuring movie I heard. I might put that scene in the movie. That was creepy, the door open. That was weird. Yeah. Hey, Chris. Yeah, this popped.
Block popped on us. You were standing right there. Yeah, no, I was. I'm standing right. It literally was hanging open. It was hanging open. I had to come back here and lock it back on. That's weird. What happened? The door was hanging open before, and he had to come up. This block popped, and the door just flexed it. I don't know. Was she holding us? It was crazy. Yeah, I had to push it. What I will describe to you next is the unsettling experience I had the next night. Mind you, I've investigated numerous dark, haunted places across the country. And once this occurred, I wasn't sure where it came from yet. I was sleeping in my bedroom in the attic of a house. I had this vision of a little girl in a white dress, with black eyes, sharp teeth, and saliva noses, with growls screaming out as it floated back and forth to the right side of my bed. I would see the close-up of this thing's sharp teeth when it out of nowhere lunges at me, waking me up with full body chills at the typical time, around 3 a.m. This is when most evil spirits are most prevalent in this case. Jesus being crucified at 3 p.m. The opposite of this spectrum is 3 a.m. for the purpose of the mockery of the Holy Trinity. I blessed my place and ended up at Gettysburg Battlefield 2 days later in the bloodiest part of the battle in Devil's Den. Out of nowhere through communication in a row, it stated, Annabelle, attic, nightmare. That's when I knew what came to me that night, days before. I had contacted Dan to tell him my experiences. And strangely enough, to add to this, he explained that same very night, after transporting Annabelle the doll back to the Warren Occult Museum, there was a St. Michael medal that was wrapped around that lock. It was snapped off and thrown across the room. With the review of the audio from this video, with what was said and my experiences overall, then to find out what happened to Dan on that same night. Coincidence? I think not. In this line of work, such as being a demonologist, when you step in the way of evil, you make yourself an adversary to the enemy of man, and that's the devil. These things know who you are, wherever you may be. I'm not sure to the extent of why, but this thing wanted to let us know that day it was present. Thanks for watching.
There you go. So that is impressive. I'll say two things and then I'll be quiet. We went to an event at the same place. We met the Annabelle doll. So for people watching, that is not any common occurrence. That does not just happen at all. And Dan Rivera from Nesper is an awesome guy, a very, very good, very well experienced investigator.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I had actually, had this experience for a while, and when I finally wanted to make a video about it, I just wanted to like put the video and tell the story, and I realized that those EVPs were on it, saying, I'll be there, little girl's voice in your bedroom, and then the growls, and it said it wants your soul, it's following him. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it was just. Wow. And telling me about the Archangel Michael medal getting thrown across the museum in the Warren house that night. There's no coincidence. All that shit lined up, but we know how these things everything's synchronized. I got evidence of it, and I was just like, "That's it. That was whatever. That was the demonic entity from that doll, and it followed me home. I don't know why it did that night, but it was, pretty unsettling and bizarre."
Wow.
Yeah, because I could hear those EVPs and those growls too. That was crazy. And then it being unlocked, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. That's the disturbing part to me.
And those EVPs were clear.
Yeah.
Those growls were clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, God, never a dull moment.
So we've had John for 2 hours. That is not a complaint. that is a gratitude.
Yeah, so much.
No problem.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and then the whole holding the phone thing up is
I feel so bad for you. Like he's there for 5 minutes. The poor guy.
I don't care. I mean, I want people to be able to see, what it, what it said and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah, it was better than the buffering.
Yeah, we want to see the Annabelle movie. If you could just hold the phone there for 90 minutes.
So what we have learned tonight is don't stream to YouTube and try and stream a YouTube video at the same time. Thank you, YouTube.
Well put.
Lesson learned.
Well put. So, for everybody watching, the name of your first book?
Shadow Chaser.
Second book?
Shadow Chaser, The In-Between.
Awesome. And then the website where you would prefer they get it. I know you said Amazon, but if they want an autograph copy, and they should.
Yeah, it's SeanDAustin.com, SEAN, D as in David, AUSTIN.com.
Awesome. So we encourage people to also go to your YouTube channel and like, subscribe, and support. Yeah, you are absolutely one of those people, I think, that defines the field as one of the figureheads, as we all are, for what we do. And I think you do it in a fantastic job. And so I appreciate it. And I would welcome an opportunity to work with you again. I know she would.
Yeah,
they would.
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
So on behalf of Lourdes and I, we're good. We thank you. Chris and Audra, any closing words before we
Thank you too.
Yes, it's been great.
This has been fantastic. Sean, thanks for coming on. Everybody, after watching Sean's evidence, I hope you sleep tight. I know I don't do too much of a good sleep. Remember 2020 Halloween, full moon. God, we've got a hurricane coming our way tonight.
Be safe.
One more hour.
And we get one more hour starting next week. So next week we are on 9 o'clock Eastern time.
Yes.
Still 7 o'clock Arizona time for those that never change their time. And remember, everybody, stay haunted, but hopefully not as haunted as Sean. All right, guys.
That's a whole other level.
Thanks for tuning in.
And we encourage you also to tune in to the Dark Zone TV for the next 4 days, starting tomorrow night, live, huge extravaganza from the Queen Mary. They are not accepting the cancellation of Halloween, nor should you.
That's
so
right.
please tune in and support the Dark Zone TV as well for that event.
Tony
And
just
Chris,
Tony just chimed in. Make sure you guys watch Tony Rathman and Cherie Rathman on the Dark Zone with the Queen Mary. All right, guys. Happy
Chris,
Halloween.
one more time.
Happy Halloween. Stay honored, especially Saturday.
Happy Halloween.
Have a good night,
We
guys.
thank you all for watching. We're here every Wednesday night. Entity Voices, Paranormal Evidence. Good night. God bless.
Good night.
Good night.